so it's about leverage, right? So like you said, when we think about like us as kind of, run-of-the-mill folks, I'm a teacher, right, by trade. Like the leverage points that I have are when folks recognize how good a teacher I am, right? And so at the end of the year, when I go to negotiate my contract and you want to talk about a 3% raise and I say, listen, I'm looking more for a 5% raise, that's where my leverage comes in. And we all, in our day-to-day, try to take advantage of those different leverage points. I mean, think about, like, your day-to-day life. You might go into a store and say, listen, I'll buy these jeans if you don't charge me the tax.
True.
Because you are trying to take advantage of that leverage. So now why wouldn't I take that same point and extrapolate that? And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. When we're talking about the fact that if I'm James Harden, I make as much money from Adidas as I make from you guys in Houston.
Yep.
Right? If I'm LeBron, you can forget LeBron James, right? Like, that level of superstardom, like, he's going to be a billionaire.
Yes.
There is nothing an NBA team can tell him. He will own one of these teams one day. So there's nothing anyone can tell that man, right? So he's just taking advantage of leverage. And not every person has equal opportunities to take advantage of leverage. So like you talked about the superstar players do, and the reality is that Kyle Kuzma doesn't have the same leverage as Anthony Davis.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And even if you look at a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, when DeMarcus Cousins was in Sacramento, he was able to take advantage of leverage, and then he got injured.
And then they traded him.
A lot of different perspectives end up shifting that leverage, man. There's a lot of different things that can happen.
Geremy, you got anything? So, I'm glad you said that, because of the fact that not only is it just a leverage.
Y'all went on to NBA, and that's where
we're talking about everything, but it's not only
y'all went this way.
it's not only the leverage. It's like the leverage was a very good point because of the fact that you bring up Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma has no leverage like Anthony Davis. But on the other end, the owners or governors, whatever they're being called now, have all of the leverage. And Kyle Kuzma literally last season, for half the season, was hanging in the balance, not knowing if he was going to get traded. He didn't know if he was getting traded. He didn't know if he was going to go to another team, if he'd end up in New Orleans, Toronto, and nobody said anything about that. Like, Draymond Green made a perfect point where Andre Drummond set out last night's game. We saw Harrison Barnes get pulled in the middle of the game. Nobody says shit about that. Nobody goes, oh, the players, Minka Fitzpatrick got traded from the Dolphins to Pittsburgh. I'm sorry. I don't want to go live in Pittsburgh. I would rather go stay and play in Miami. Fuck being in Pittsburgh. Granted, it may give me a better chance to win, but I had no control over that. Nobody's bitching. Nobody's sitting up there going, oh my God, that we feel bad for the players that Minka had to leave Miami and go all the way to Pittsburgh. What's the guy from the Jacksonville that got traded from Jacksonville to Minnesota and then to Baltimore this year? He's a defensive end. Like, they have...
Oh, that Yannick Ngakoue?
There we go. Yeah, that guy. So when you're 100% right when you say leverage. Like, certain players have leverage, and we'd be crazy not to think that they're going to use it when it involves millions of dollars when we do it like he said, in our everyday life. You go to the store, go to a car dealership. Let's see how that works. I used to sell cars. I bought cars. You were all about anything you finance, you were all about getting leverage for. But yet, these players are basically getting paid millions of dollars for a very, very limited time. Like, yeah, LeBron James has been playing 18 seasons. There's a reason why we marvel over that. Because not everybody is that talented to keep it at that long. Tom Brady is 43 fucking years old and just won a Super Bowl. And basically just said, he did a LeBron James in the NFL, said, no, Patriots, I'm done with y'all. I'm going to go pick my team, and then we're going to go win. When you have that kind of leverage that the players are having now, I just think it's amazing. I think it's awesome that they're controlling their careers compared to what it was like Michael Jordan or Scottie Pippen in The Last Dance, where both of them went in trades and they were on 10 years contracts and grossly underpaid. How often is it that a NFL team cuts you after you sign a contract? We all know with NFL teams it's guaranteed money. You sign a 5-year, $125 million contract and it has $35 million guaranteed. You only getting paid about $35 million. You have no leverage whatsoever.
You're only getting that for like 2 years. After 2 years, you're done.
Exactly. And
that's what your guaranteed money's in the first 2 years.
You're 100% right. And DeAndre Hopkins, he came to the Texans and said, hey, I want more guaranteed money. They said, bye. Bye. We're going to ship you out to Arizona. Granted, it worked in his favor, but you've had that for years where players have came up and tried to renegotiate contract in any sport, and the owners are like, you're crazy. I'm not paying you that much money. You're not worth that much money. Motherfucker, where would your organization be without me? Nobody would be watching the Houston Texans if Deshaun Watson was not there this year. Well, that's not true. Because
let me say that I was going to say, because that's where the owners always had power, right? Was, listen, fans are short for fanatics.
Yes.
Right? You're going to go watch the Chiefs.
Yep.
Whether they're good or not.
Yep.
And the Raiders game going to be on at Geremy house every Sunday, whether they're good or not.
Yep.
And listen, I watch my New York sports teams. When's the last time a New York team won anything? Right?
2012.
I watch them though, right? And I mean, that's really where it comes. Like, the owners always had control of the dollars.
Yes.
And that's where they have the leverage. The television contracts are negotiated by the league. The commissioner of the league is an employee of the owners. He's the only person who he works for are the owners of any individual league, right?
You're
and
right.
So, for non-players didn't have any of these leverage points because they didn't have control of the dollars. It's crazy. Like, if you go back and hear the stories of a guy like Mickey Mantle, right? Things that happened to him could never happen today. Mickey Mantle, like, the owners used to just put money in his pocket just to keep him quiet. Like, Mick, you want a house? We'll buy your house. You want a car? We'll buy that car. You don't even charge that dinner to me. You don't even have to worry about it. If that man would have knew the level of revenue that he was generating for the New York Yankees, right? The owners were happy to do that stuff for him, so that way he never found out what he could generate. And then you have a guy like Kurt Flood years later, who is like, no, you can't trade me to Philly, St. Louis. I'm not going, right? And then the whole idea of free agency. And think about what free agency has done. It's essentially shifted the entire balance of sports on a global perspective, right? And it's now that we have things like free agency and television contracts, we start to understand the shifting dynamics of money. Then now we get into maybe the early 90s, and you get to finally Reggie White.
Okay.
That's player empowerment, right? Reggie White's sitting there with Philly, and he's like, you going to pay me?
Yep.
No, we're not going to pay you. Deuces, I'm going to the Packers, and
Yep.
I'm going to go win my Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
And, Geremy and I, we were just talking about Deshaun Watson, right? Leverage, right? When you play that position of quarterback, there's leverage that comes with that. And listen, you could pay me 4 years, 150 some odd million, right? You can give me that contract extension. I appreciate it, right? I saw Deshaun Watson crying when he got the contract on television today.
You're right.
And I won't play another game for you guys if I don't want to. Now what are you going to do? I already got money, so what are you going to do if I say I'm not going to play?
True.
That's how Le'Veon Bell gets out of Pittsburgh, right? Like, that's the reason why Le'Veon Bell was able to get out of Pittsburgh, because he's like, I'm going to play. The reason why Emmitt Smith years ago got money out of Jerry Jones is he's like, I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
Jerry's like, fine, whoop, I got a Super Bowl team. That Super Bowl team went 0-2 without Emmitt Smith.
Yep. And
all
then
of
they
a
paid
sudden, they paid that man.
They paid him.
And then that team went 12-2 and won a Super Bowl after that, right? So, I mean, really, once you understand the dollars and cents, then it only makes sense to take advantage of these leverage points, right? Hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake.